I held the business card between my fingers, reading the name Sandra Mitchell, Senior Real Estate Specialist, for the third time. I was silent, but my rage was building like a pressure cooker about to blow. My daughter-in-law stood across the kitchen island, her smile so sweet it could rot teeth, waiting for my reaction. "It's just something to think about, William," Jessica said, gesturing at the wicker gift basket she'd placed on my counter. Tucked among the gourmet crackers and artisan jam were glossy brochures for Silver Springs Senior Living and Meadowbrook Retirement Community. "You're 65 now. This house is so big for just one person. All these stairs, the yard work, the maintenance." I set down the business card carefully, deliberately. My son, Michael, stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder, not quite meeting my eyes. That's when I knew. This wasn't just Jessica's idea. "We had Thanksgiving here 2 days ago," I said quietly. "I cooked a 20-pound turkey, made 3 kinds of pie from scratch, and hosted 14 people. The house seemed fine then." "Oh, Dad, that's not what she means," Michael interjected, finally looking at me. "It's just that you're getting older, and we worry. I'm 65, not 95. Jessica's smile didn't waver. "Of course not. You're very active. That's actually why we thought. Well, the equity in this house is just sitting here. If you sold it, you could live comfortably in a nice facility and maybe help us with the down payment on a bigger place. Michael and I are planning to start a family soon, and our condo is really too small for a baby." There it was, the real reason for the gift basket full of real estate propaganda. They wanted my house money. I'd bought this 4-bedroom colonial 32 years ago when Michael was 3. My wife Sarah and I had scraped together the down payment by working 2 jobs each. She'd passed away 4 years ago from cancer, and every room still held her memory, the reading nook she'd designed, the garden she'd planted, the kitchen where we'd cooked together for decades. "I appreciate the concern," I said, my voice level despite the anger churning in my gut. "But I'm not interested in selling." Jessica's expression flickered, just for a moment. "We're just trying to look out for you. Living alone at your age..." "I'm 65, not helpless. And I like living alone." "Dad, come on," Michael said. "Jessica's just trying to help. We've been looking at houses, and we found this perfect place in Maple Grove, but we're about $40,000 short on the down payment. If you sold this place and moved somewhere smaller, you'd have more than enough for a comfortable retirement, and we could get the house we need for our future kids." I stared at my son, my only child, the boy I'd driven to baseball practice every Saturday for 8 years, the teenager I'd stayed up with, helping him study for college entrance exams, the young man whose wedding I'd paid for 2 years ago, all $30,000 of it, draining my savings account. "So you want $40,000 from me?" "It's not like that," Jessica said quickly. "We're thinking of your future. Senior living facilities offer so much activities, meal plans, no maintenance worries. I don't want to live in a senior facility. I want to live in my house." The temperature in the kitchen dropped. Jessica's smile finally disappeared. "We're trying to have a rational conversation about your future, William. You're being stubborn." "I'm being stubborn?" "You show up 3 days after Thanksgiving with a basket full of brochures trying to convince me to sell my house so you can buy yours." "That's not fair," Michael said. "We're genuinely worried about you here alone." "I've been alone for 4 years. Where was this worry yesterday?" "Fine," Jessica said, her voice tight. "We were just trying to help. Forget we mentioned it." They left 10 minutes later, the gift basket abandoned on my counter. I threw it in the trash, brochures and all, but kept the business card. Sandra Mitchell, Senior Real Estate Specialist. I tucked it into my wallet. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the look on Michael's face, not quite guilty, not quite defiant. My son had become someone I didn't quite recognize, or maybe I'd just been blind to it. The calls started the next day. First Michael, apologizing for how it came across, but doubling down on the logic. "Dad, seriously, think about it. You don't need 4 bedrooms. The property taxes alone must be killing you." Then Jessica called, her voice dripping with concern. "I know we got off on the wrong foot yesterday. I found this wonderful retirement community with a golf course. They're having an open house next Saturday. Would you like to go? Just to look?" I declined, politely but firmly. The pressure intensified over the next 2 weeks. Michael stopped by just to check on me 3 times, each visit somehow circling back to the burden of home ownership, the freedom of retirement living, the financial opportunity I was sitting on. Jessica sent me links to listings, luxury senior apartments, active adult communities, even assisted living facilities with vibrant social programs. Then came the guilt trip. Mom would want you to be taken care of, Michael said one evening, sitting in the living room where his mother had spent her last months. She'd want you somewhere safe, somewhere you don't have to worry. I stood up. Don't you dare use your mother to manipulate me. Sarah loved this house. She died in the bedroom upstairs, looking out at the garden she planted. This is her home. It's just a house, Dad. Get out. Michael left, but the campaign continued. Jessica's mother called me, suggesting I was being selfish by not helping young people get started. Michael's college roommate, now a real estate agent, sent me a market analysis showing how much my house could sell for. Then the invitation arrived. Jessica's family was hosting their annual Christmas party. A big event, apparently. Black tie, optional. We'd really love for you to come, William, the handwritten note said. It would mean so much to have family there. I almost declined, but something made me accept. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the same instinct that had kept me successful through 30 years in mechanical engineering, the ability to see when the variables didn't quite add up. I started making calls. First to Sandra Mitchell, the senior real estate specialist whose business card Jessica had given me. Oh yes, she said when I mentioned my daughter-in-law. Jessica contacted me about 3 weeks ago, asking about the process for helping elderly parents transition to senior living. 3 weeks before Thanksgiving, before the gift basket. This had been planned. I called my lawyer, Tom Rodriguez, who'd handled Sarah's estate. Hypothetically, I said, if someone was pressuring me to sell my house, what are my options? Legally, it's your property. They can't force you to do anything, but family pressure can be complicated. Why do you ask? I told him everything. Tom was quiet for a long moment. William, I'm going to be straight with you. This sounds like financial elder abuse. It's more common than you think. Adult children pressuring parents to access their assets. I'm not being abused. I'm just being annoyed. It's a spectrum, and it can escalate. My advice? Document everything. Save those texts, those emails, those voicemails, and maybe make your boundaries very clear. I thought about that for days. About boundaries, about respect, about the fact that my son and his wife saw me not as a person but as an obstacle between them and $40,000. The Christmas party was at Jessica's parents' estate, a sprawling house in an expensive suburb. I arrived in my best suit, carrying a bottle of wine. The place was packed with at least 60 guests, most of whom I didn't know. Jessica's father owned a chain of car dealerships, and the crowd reflected it: expensive clothes, expensive jewelry, expensive small talk. Michael found me within minutes. Dad, you came. I'm glad. Wouldn't miss it. Jessica appeared, radiant in a red dress. William, so wonderful you could make it. Let me introduce you to some people. She steered me through the crowd, introducing me to aunts, uncles, cousins, business associates. Each introduction included the same script. This is William, Michael's father. He lives in that beautiful big house over on Oak Street. 4 bedrooms, all by himself. By the third iteration, I understood. This wasn't just a party. This was a stage, and I was being positioned as the stubborn old man hoarding space and resources while young people struggled. Must be lonely in such a big place, one of Jessica's cousins said, her voice syrupy with pity. Must be expensive to maintain, her husband added. Oh, we've been trying to help him find something more suitable, Jessica said, her hand on my arm. But you know how stubborn our generation can be about change. Our generation. As if she and I were peers, united against my inexplicable resistance to common sense. I smiled and excused myself to the bathroom. In the hallway, I took out my phone and texted Tom Rodriguez. Remember what we discussed about making boundaries clear? I'm ready. When I returned to the party, Jessica's father was standing at the fireplace, tapping a wine glass with a knife. The crowd quieted. Thank you all for being here tonight, he boomed. It's wonderful to have family and friends together for the holidays. And I'm particularly thrilled to share some exciting news. My daughter Jessica and son-in-law Michael have finally found their dream home. Applause erupted. Michael looked surprised. Jessica was beaming. They've been searching for months, her father continued, trying to find the perfect place to start their family. And they've found it a beautiful 4-bedroom in Maple Grove with a yard big enough for grandkids to play in. More applause. Jessica hugged her father. Now, they're just a bit short on the down payment, he continued, his smile turning to me. But we're family, and family helps each other. We're all going to chip in to help these young people achieve their dreams. In fact, I'm pledging $10,000 right now. The crowd cheered. Jessica wiped away tears. And I'm hoping, her father said, looking directly at me, that Michael's father might want to contribute as well. After all, that big house of his must be quite a burden at his age. Might be the perfect time to downsize and help his son. Every eye in the room turned to me. This was the trap. Refuse, and I'd be the selfish old man in front of 60 witnesses. Agree, and I'd validate everything they'd been saying. I stood up. May I say something? Jessica's father gestured magnanimously. Of course, William. Please. I walked to the fireplace, feeling the weight of all those eyes. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. I'd faced down tougher rooms than this: engineering reviews, budget meetings, hospital consultations during Sarah's illness. First, congratulations to Michael and Jessica on finding a house you love. That's wonderful. Jessica smiled, sensing victory. Second, I want to address something that's been going on for the past few weeks. You see, my daughter-in-law here gave me a gift basket after Thanksgiving. Mixed in with some nice crackers and jam were brochures for senior living facilities and the business card of a real estate agent specializing in selling homes for elderly people. The room was very quiet now. At first, I thought it was just concern. Maybe I am getting older. Maybe I should think about downsizing. But then I learned that Jessica had contacted that real estate agent 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. This wasn't spontaneous concern. This was a plan. Michael's face had gone white. Dad, I'm not finished. Over the past few weeks, I've received dozens of calls and texts and emails, all pressuring me to sell my home. Not because I need care. Not because I can't maintain it. But because my son and his wife want $40,000 for their down payment. That's not fair, Jessica said, her voice sharp. We were trying to help you. By calling my house a burden? By suggesting I'm too old to live independently at 65? By manipulating me in front of a room full of strangers? I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. I have every text, every email, every voicemail, including one from 3 days ago where Jessica told me that any decent father would want to help his son's family grow. Jessica's mother gasped. My wife Sarah died in that house 4 years ago. She spent her last weeks looking out at the garden she planted, surrounded by 30 years of memories. I promised her I'd stay as long as I could. I promised her I'd keep her garden alive. My voice cracked slightly, and I took a breath. But more than that, it's my house. I bought it. I paid for it. I've maintained it. And I get to decide what happens to it. Not my son. Not his wife. Me. This is ridiculous, Jessica's father said. You're making us sound like villains for trying to help family. I paid for my son's wedding 2 years ago. $30,000. Drained my savings. I didn't ask to be paid back because that's what parents do. But apparently, that wasn't enough. Apparently, I'm supposed to sell my home too. Michael stood up. Dad, please, can we talk about this privately? No. You wanted to have this conversation publicly, using social pressure to force my hand. So, let's have it publicly. I turned to the room. I'm 65 years old. I worked as a mechanical engineer for 38 years. I'm in excellent health. I swim 3 times a week at the Y. I volunteer at the library. I cook my own meals, maintain my own house, and manage my own finances. I don't need to be in a senior facility. I don't need to downsize. I don't need help. What I need, I said, looking at my son, is for my family to respect my decisions. What I need is to not be treated like an ATM or an obstacle. What I need is basic human dignity. The silence was crushing. I could see Jessica's face, red with humiliation and rage. Michael couldn't look at me. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. I'm keeping my house. I'm living my life. And if you want a relationship with me, it's going to be based on respect, not on what you think you can get from me. I set my wine glass on the mantel. Thank you for the invitation. I'll see myself out. I walked through that silent room, past 60 shocked faces, and out the front door. My hands were shaking as I got into my car, but I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My phone started ringing before I even got home. Michael, then Jessica, then Michael again. I didn't answer. When I got home, I poured myself a whiskey and sat in Sarah's reading nook, looking out at the winter garden. The voicemails came next. Michael crying, apologizing. Jessica screaming that I'd humiliated her in front of her family. Jessica's mother, cold and furious, saying I was a bitter old man. Jessica's father, threatening legal action for slander. I saved them all. Sent them to Tom Rodriguez, just in case. Then, around midnight, one more call. Michael, sober this time. Dad, I need to talk to you, face to face. Please, come tomorrow, 10 a.m. He arrived at 9:30, looking like he hadn't slept. Jessica wasn't with him. I'm sorry, he said, standing in my living room. For all of it. You were right. It was manipulative and wrong. Why did you do it? He slumped into a chair. Jessica wanted that house so badly. She kept talking about starting a family, about needing space, about how her friends were all buying houses. And I wanted to make her happy. And I thought, you don't need all this space. And we're struggling. And it seemed like it made sense. So you decided to pressure me into selling my home. I didn't think of it as pressure. I thought we were helping you see the benefits. God, that sounds awful when I say it out loud. It is awful, Michael. He put his head in his hands. Jessica's furious at me. Says you made us look like monsters. Her parents aren't speaking to me. And she's right, isn't she? We were being monsters. I sat down across from him. I don't think you're a monster. I think you lost sight of what matters. You let someone else's wants override your father's needs. I'm so sorry, Dad. I don't know how to fix this. You start by accepting that my house isn't yours to plan around. You start by understanding that I'm not a resource to be managed. I'm your father. I know. I know that now. We sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, I said, how much do you actually have saved for this house? About 60,000. We need 100 for the down payment we want. And Jessica won't settle for a smaller house? Michael laughed bitterly. That's the thing. We could afford a perfectly nice 3-bedroom in a different neighborhood, but she wants to keep up with her friends, her cousins. She wants the Maple Grove house, specifically. Are you happy with her? He looked up at me, surprised. I don't know. Lately everything's about money and status, and what we don't have. It wasn't like this when we dated. Marriage shows you who people really are. Your mother and I had some hard times, but we faced them together. We didn't expect anyone else to bail us out. I miss Mom. She'd know what to say right now. She'd tell you the same thing I am. Grow a spine, make your own decisions, and don't sacrifice your relationship with your father for anyone. Michael stayed for an hour. We didn't hug when he left, but there was understanding between us. Whether he'd actually change, or whether Jessica's influence was too strong, I didn't know. 3 weeks later, I got a text from Michael. Jessica and I are separating. I'm staying with a friend. Can we talk? We met for breakfast. He looked exhausted, but somehow lighter. The night of the party, after you left, Jessica told me I had to choose her or you. She said if I didn't make you apologize and commit to helping us with the house, she was done. And you chose? I told her I needed time to think. She moved back to her parents' house the next day, filed for separation last week. I'm sorry, Michael. I'm not. I'm sad, but I'm not sorry. The last 3 weeks without her constant pressure have been peaceful. I've been thinking about what I actually want, not what she wants. And I don't want a house in Maple Grove. I don't want to keep up with her cousins. I just want a simple, honest life. That's a good thing to want. I know I screwed up with you. I know I let her manipulate me into being someone I'm not. But I want to do better. I want to rebuild our relationship. If you'll let me. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Of course. You're my son. That doesn't change. His eyes filled with tears. I love you, Dad. And I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Even though it was humiliating in the moment, you were right. I needed to hear it. I love you too. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you for choosing your values over convenience. 6 months later, Michael found a small two-bedroom house he could afford on his own. I helped him move in, not with money, but with my time and my truck and my willingness to spend a Saturday hauling boxes. As for me, I'm still in my house, still swimming at the Y, still tending Sarah's garden, and every morning I sit in her reading nook with my coffee and feel grateful that I stood my ground. Because self-respect isn't negotiable, not for family, not for anyone. And the day you compromise it to keep peace is the day you lose yourself.